Well, today is the third in the series of thinking with you around the words of Micah, and then some of the corollary comments that come to us from the New Testament. So here are the words of Micah again, Micah 6, verses 6 through 8. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord rejoice and require of you, but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. And then James says these very simple things in one of his comments about his understanding of how we need to come before God. And he says very simply, humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Now, in 1980, a country western singer put out an album with a key song in there that I would suspect that many of you, at least the guys, would have sung. It was Mac Davis, and he sold an enormous number of these songs. In fact, in New Zealand, they became a gold sale record. In Australia, they became platinum. The record's sales in the United States and other places were unbelievable. Canada, South Africa, Ireland, Great Britain, and the United States. And these are his words. Oh Lord, it's hard being humble when you're perfect in every way. You probably all sung it because it goes so easily. To know me is to love me. I must be a heck of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can. The second or other stanza, which is interesting as a self-assessment of his unbelievable specialness, he says to the crowd who sang it, I guess you could say I'm a loner, a cowboy who's lost nothing proud. I could have lots of friends if I wanted, but then I wouldn't stand out from the crowd. Well, the truth of the matter is, all of us perhaps have a moment when we know that we do something really well. Or we've heard over and over again about something about us that is spectacular, and we oftentimes will repeat that. One of the members of this congregation, or the congregation of Manitouche Waters, had the last name, his nickname was Speck. And I said to him, how did you get that name? And his wife immediately interrupted me and him and said, oh, Speck is short for spectacular. Well, when you put the words of Micah and the words of James besides this country western song, one begins to wonder whether it is appropriate for us to be boasting about our being so spectacular and so unusual and so exceptional. Now, the call on the part of Micah is that we not only live justly, which I've suggested to you requires us to think justice in our heads, and then frame the kinds of words and thoughts and activities that demonstrate that we are living justly. And not just with ourselves, for we all want justice, but justice for others. The second thing that we had thought about in this passage was we are asked to love kindness. And interestingly enough, we thought about the ways in which kindness could be demonstrated. And I shared with you this congregation in Illinois, Mendota, Illinois, that decided the two parishes in that community would see if they could demonstrate acts of kindness, record them, and reach 1,000. And they did. They were so excited. Kindness. My hunch is Barb Phelps has an idea that we might be able to do something with that even here. And now Micah says to us that not only are we to live justly and to love kindness, but now we're being asked to walk humbly with our God. I've also assumed that that means we are asked to walk humbly with one another. In a real sense, walking humbly with one another is walking humbly before and with our God. For it's a testament to having awareness that humility includes our caring for others in many ways above ourselves. Now, I thought about what the assumptions are that might be raised when it comes to walking humbly with our God. And one of the assumptions that I have concluded is that walking humbly with our God makes the assumption that God will walk with us. Now, a couple of places, one in the Old Testament, one in the New Testament, remind me of this. One, the Old Testament book of Joshua. You know Joshua. All of us sang that wonderful children's song, Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Well, he wasn't so bold and so brave before that great battle, and so he was doubting whether or not he would be capable of doing it. And it was the Lord's voice that came to him that said to him very clearly, I will be with you. Don't be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And we have understood that to be the case, that there is nowhere that God will not be with us. Now, I must say this again. Our sons were operating a place downtown Monaco a number of years ago, and 4 of the young women who had been part of our youth group came in and said, Reverend Irv, sing the love song with us, right in the middle of the barroom floor. God was with us. Jesus was often criticized for being with people where they were, whether they were drawing water at the well, or whether he was at a wedding, or whether he invited folks to come and join him as they had a meal. He was with them. It made no difference where they were, who they were, but it made a difference as to who he was. In the Gospel of Matthew, there is this incredible story of Jesus having spoken to a massive crowd of people. And then when he's all done, he urges the disciples to get into a boat and to go across the water to another location, and he would walk around to meet them. Well, as the afternoon and evening grew short, a wind came up, the storm came up, and they were bounced around in this small boat, quite certain that they were in peril of death. And who should show up? Jesus. Seas and rocky seas and dangerous seas in the Old Testament has always been a matter of chaos. It was a way of symbolizing chaos. The disciples were in chaos at that moment. They were uncertain about their future, uncertain about their life. And who should show up but Jesus? Now they're startled. They're fearful. But Jesus says, be calm. Be calm. Not only to the chaos, but to them. So first of all, it seems to me the Lord is prepared to be with us. The Lord is prepared to be with us. The second assumption is that the Lord wants us to be with him. That is to say, it's pretty hard to walk humbly with the Lord if the Lord's not there and isn't inviting us to join in that walk. You may recall how difficult it is, those of us who are studying the book of Revelation, to understand all of the imageries and the symbolisms and the language which is drawn out of the Old Testament. But there is one passage that I have always found to be absolutely clear, and it's a passage that inspired artists to draw it frequently. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. And if you hear me and open the door, I will come to be with you. It's a way in which we understand that it is our God who invites us to become part of that walk, part of the life that has been given to us, part of the struggles, part of the successes, part of the joy, part of the sorrow, part of life and part of death. It's the psalmist who said, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. Not because he's so strong, not because he's such a mean person, not because he's been there before and he knows how to take care of himself, and not because he has armor and all kinds of things that will ward off anyone who might try to attack him, but because he is confident that the Lord is with him always and invites him to walk with him. The second assumption is God wants us to be with him. And the third assumption that I make is that when we come before God, we are asked to come humbly. That is to say, recognizing our need. Not to be there to boast, not to be there to pound on our chest and say how great we are. Have you noticed, Lord? Not to tell the Lord how much resources we have, what our huge financial assets are, what our net worth might be, but to come before God humbly. By the way, there are some others who'd like to be included, I suspect, in this presentation. One of them is an incredible statement that comes from a score of other folks who clearly understand that to be humble is to not reject. I love the words of C.S. Lewis, who created that delightful book of several little pamphlets, the Chronicles of Narnia. If you haven't read that, read it again. C.S. Lewis says, being humble is not a matter of recognizing your strengths, but being humble means that you don't do anything other than recognize your strengths. And that's a paraphrase. In 1913, a gentleman created a hymn, which is a gospel hymn. It's a wonderful hymn, and it's one that I suspect many of you have sung both as a child and as an adult. The gospel writer was C. Austin Miles. And here are the words of this gospel hymn that talks about the simple way that one who believes, who comes humbly before God, engages in that wonderful walk and conversation. I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of Man discloses, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. Well, with some degree of pride and joy, this author says, no one else experiences this like I have. The truth of the matter is, all who are willing to walk humbly with God will be exalted, will be lifted up, and you'll not need to boast or proclaim all your assets or give all the things that others think you should give, or even those things which Micah said folks thought were necessary. Just be humble before your God. Know who you are. Share that with your God. Seek his presence, seek his guidance, and you will be exalted. What does God require of you? What pleases God but to live justly, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with him. Amen.